Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. You're down. Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 straight in the California prison system. During those times, I accumulated some good stories and insight on prison. I'm going to share some with y'all today. If you happen to like the video, be sure to leave a comment, subscribe, and most importantly, hit that notification bell. That way, anytime I drop a story, you will be notified ASAP, and you can hop on it whenever you're ready. Also, if you want to binge watch or check up on some of my older stories, and I definitely got some great ones, go to my YouTube playlist and you will see them organized in different categories. Now let's hop right up into this video. Now actually, this is an extremely important video in terms of if you're doing some time, and not necessarily in the California prison system, but anywhere. If you happen to be doing time and it's cell living, right? Keep in mind, now those cells are extremely small, and most prisons, you're basically in a concrete cement box with another human being, right? Who is 9 times out of 10 unhappy about being in prison, period, right? Even though a person may be 100% guilty, I've ran across a lot of people who seem to be extremely miserable by the fact that they are incarcerated, right? And so if you happen to get into a fight, chances are highly unlikely that the guards is not going to hear it. So it's up to you guys to decide to whether to stop fighting, one person kill the other person, or whatever. So you might be in a fight for your life, right? And then outside of the fighting aspect, also just to have peace of mind, that's one thing that's important about choosing a good cellie, right? And sometimes it just comes down to luck of the draw, because you might be on the yard and you see a dude, and on the yard he seems upbeat, he's cool, he's out there, he's laughing, he's talking to people, he's having fun, he seems like an all right dude. But then you move into the cell with him and you notice that certain things will make this dude irritable. Small things, seemingly small to certain people, like not getting no mail. He may not get mail from his girlfriend or his wife 2 or 3 days in a row. Now he becomes irritable. He becomes upset. He gets moody, not being able to sign up for a phone call. All types of things, can change a person, or make a person change, or make characteristics come out of an individual in the cell that you didn't happen to see on the yard, right? And like I say, sometimes it just comes down to luck of the draw. But a few important things to find in a person who's going to be your cellmate, and also in order for you to have to be a good cellmate, the most important thing, of course, is respect, right? You have to be respectful of a person that you're living in the cell with, and you have to be considerate. And so, I've had cellies who, they'll come into the cell, for instance, and now in the California prison system, we can have TVs, we can have radios, Walkmans, we also can have headphones, right? And so you may have a person who comes into the cell and he doesn't want to listen to the music with his headphones on. We used to have these speakers, or these radios with pretty big speakers, so they were quite loud. And then also we could get other Walkmans, and people would hook the speakers up and make them loud. And so you'd have some individuals who come into the cell, they want to turn the music on, regardless of what you may be doing. Now when I was locked up, when I was on the yard, I'd laugh, I'd talk, I'd play basketball, I'd clown, I'd tell jokes. But when I got to the cell, it was wind down time for me. I like to have a peace of mind. Sometimes I would like to be in my thoughts. I would like to read, possibly watch TV, the news, Jeopardy, what have you. And I cannot enjoy myself to the fullest when I have a cellie who's bumping his music, then he's rapping to the music. Or some cellies will put their headphones on, but they're still rapping out loud. We ride over to the pasa, do get that. After a while, all that stuff gets annoying, right? And so you definitely want to have a person who's considerate, right? And so I chose to try to pick cellies who had been down for a while, who kind of knew how to do time in a respectable manner. You definitely have to be compatible with the person that you're in the cell with. Now, of course, that compatibility boils down to the two individuals who are being housed in that same cell. Both of you guys may like to smoke weed. Both of you guys may like to listen to loud music. Both of you guys may be super neat freaks or whatever. So you guys have to work that out amongst yourself, but you definitely want to try to find a person who you're compatible with. Also, another reason is when you're doing time and you're locked up, you have all your worldly possessions in that cell, things that are important to you. You got pictures of your family, addresses, your transcripts, you got food, all types of stuff in there. So you want to be able to know that when you leave the cell, things that are important to you are not being inspected, not being consumed without permission by your cellie. Now, 9 times out of 10, when I was in the cell with somebody, I would always tell this dude, hey, listen, man, anything that you see on my locker, you're welcome to it. I would try to live like brothers with the majority of my cellies. That didn't always turn out, but for the most part, that's what I would try to be, live in harmony, right? But now, and we have to keep in mind too, everybody doing time is not fortunate enough to have people helping them out financially, or that person have a good job in prison or a good hustle to support itself. Now, I was fortunate enough to have them things, so I always made sure to extend the things that I had to my cellies in some situations. But now, I've also had cellies who didn't have a great financial support system, but when they did get money, I had one cellie in particular, his priorities was different from mine. Now, I don't smoke cigarettes, I don't drink coffee, and those are two highly requested items and sought after items in prison. So I would have one cellie, he would get money periodically, maybe every 4 or 5 months, maybe $100, which is not a whole lot of money when you don't go to the store regularly. But when he did get this money, and he would fill out his canteen list, he would make sure to have 3 or 4 cans of tobacco, which was maybe about $16 a can at the time, maybe 12, somewhere around there. 3 or 4 jars of coffee, which was about $8. So that would already get him up to about $60, $70. Then he may get a little bit of candy. Then he gets some food, a couple of cases of soup. I believe the soups were 20 cents at that time, some beans and rice, and some chili in the can, and a few other items, right, that might last him food-wise. It may last him probably maybe about a week or two. Now, me, I'm an extremely picky eater. I didn't like eating the cafeteria food or the chow hall food too much, so I always wanted to keep a lot of things in my cell. Then I also don't eat fish, so I would have a lot of things like chicken, summer sausage, beans, rice, noodles, that type of stuff. Now, each night I'd make something to eat. I'm not going to be the type of individual to prepare a meal and not offer my cellie some if he doesn't have anything, right? But at the same time, now when my cellie's prioritizing coffee and tobacco, and he'd eat that stuff up in a week or two, then look up at me like, hey, what we eating tonight, cellie? I say, hey man, shoot, you should eat some of that tobacco that you bought, since that's where your priorities are. You know what I'm saying? So you definitely want to have a person in the cell that also is considerate and pulls his own weight as much as possible. Now, if a person just doesn't have nothing, he doesn't have nothing. But for a person to be irresponsible, 30, 40 years old, he prefers to buy a cigarette than eat, then that's on him, right? Then sometimes, too, like I said, you have dudes in the cell who are extreme neat freaks, and they're real small, they're picky. I happened to be in a cell one time with a dude who I grew up with. We went to high school together, I grew up. I think he was about a year older than me, but everything was so he would nitpick about the smallest stuff. Hey, Sally, you see that small piece of paper that you dropped that over there? Just the smallest of things, right? And he also was a stress case, which eventually I came to the understanding of when I'm doing time. Once I have a good cellie, I don't care who hits the yard. If one of my homeboys hit the yard, if President Obama hit the yard, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to stay with my good cellie, because when you're in that small little space, peace of mind is extremely, extremely important. Like I spoke about earlier, right? Cell fights. I've seen or heard of a couple of dudes getting into fights while I was incarcerated and losing their life. Actually, on 9/11, when the terrorists bombed the towers, I happened to be I was in Ironwood, which is a prison in the city of Blythe. I was on A yard, but on B yard, there happened to be a fight between two black dudes, and one dude actually killed his cellie. Also, there was another former, relatively well-known football player by the name of Lawrence Phillips. I believe that was his name. He happened to get incarcerated for whatever, and he happened to be in a cell with an individual known as 8 Ball from the projects in San Bernardino. Now, while I had never knew 8 Ball personally, he still was a homie of mine in prison due to our geographical location. You know, he was from San Bernardino, and as I spoke on many times in my stories, most people from San Bernardino and County and Riverside County, we all function as one collective in there. Unfortunately, he happened to be in the cell with this former football player. Like I say, I believe his name was Lawrence Phillips. They happened to get into a physical altercation, and the former football player, who was a running back, big strong dude, they got into a fight, and he ended up choking 8 Ball and killing him in the cell, you know. And so, like I said, you always want to be able to be in a cell with someone where you can have a peace of mind. Now, also in California, which is an extremely different situation and dynamic that we have out here from some prisons. I believe now that the gang presence has spread to a lot of states, but Crips and Bloods, you know, for the most part, Crips and Bloods are not going to be in the cell with each other. I have seen it one time, but in that particular time, they was brother and sister. Now, you may have, you know, because now when I first came to prison, of course, I never told the police I was a gang member. So there were times when they would put me in the cell with a Blood. And once the police would leave or whatever, I let the dude know, hey man, I'm from such and such a particular place, and 9 times out of 10, the dude was like, okay, cool, no problem, homie. You know, you can stay in here for a couple of days until you find you a cell to go to, right? But for the long haul, you're not going to see Crips and Bloods in the cell for the most part. Also, you may not see certain Crips in the cell with other Crips if their gangs are not allies or don't get along. Reason being is because anything can happen out there on that yard. And like I said, once again, you want peace of mind. So it may not even be involved with you and your cellie. You know, I had a situation one time where I had a cellie, my homeboys and his homeboys happened to get into it on the yard. Now, me and this dude in the cell, we was living good. We had been up there 5-6 months, was cool and collective, you know what I'm saying? So, bing, bop, boo, bop, boo, boo. Dudes go to squabbing on the yard. A little melee breaks out between my homies and his homies. Like I said, we have been in the cell 5 or 6 months, and I couldn't believe it, man. I'm squabbing with 2 of this dude's homies, and my own cellie rushed me, right? So that was crazy. And while it didn't hurt me physically, it did hurt me. It hurt, you know, it hurt me emotionally, right? Because me and this dude was cool, or at least so I thought, you know what I'm saying? And that's why you have certain dudes who are only gonna go in the cell with their homeboys or people who they are allies with in prison to avoid those type of instances, right? I also had a friend who was on a yard, and they was Bloods, and but they was Bloods. One Blood was from San Bernardino area, the other Blood was from the Los Angeles area. There happened to be a riot on the yard at Salinas between the Bloods from Los Angeles and the Inland Empire. And so when the Blood from the Inland Empire goes back into his cell, unbeknownst to him, his cellie has told another Blood to come in there, and he hid up under the bunk. And when they shut the door, they jumped him, you know. And so he was all right, but it was possible in the situation they could have had knives or whatever, could have stabbed him, or they could have just beat him real bad up in there, 2-on-1, right? And so it's always extremely important to find you a cellie who, like I said, you are compatible with, man. I told a couple of stories about some cellies that I had. One of the stories was my cellie told on me right in my face. If you guys haven't seen that, definitely go check that out. That was an extremely funny story, part 1 and part 2. And also I told a story about my cellie was a crazy Jordan fan. Now that story right there was hilarious. A lot of people may have avoided that story thinking that it was a sports story or something like that, but no, it's definitely not a sports story. It's about this cellie that I had. Was extremely funny, extremely weird at the same time. So if you guys haven't seen that, go check that out. My cellie was a crazy Jordan fan or something like that. So yeah, this video right here was requested by a dude who watches my videos. I believe his name was Gets187. So if you're listening, shout out to Gets187 for suggesting a good topic. But yes, definitely, it's definitely extremely important when you're doing time to be compatible, right? Because you don't want to be in a cell fighting. You don't want to be in a cell, a dude stealing your stuff every time you leave. He's going through your letters. He's eating your stuff. And I had a situation like that one time too. I won't do a story on that now because I heard just recently that the brother passed away, and since he's not here to defend himself, I won't put that story out there. But it was it was a little bit problematic, But anyway, that's just a video right there about the importance of having a good celly. And like I said, picking a good celly sometimes just comes down to the luck of the draw. Sometimes you have to go through cellies a couple of times, before you see. Oh, you know what? Also, one last thing that's extremely important: snoring. I could not deal with a celly who snored, who was a loud snorer, right? I remember I had one celly, his name was Rockamore. Shout out to Rock. He's from Paris. He's free now. Cool dude. Me and him, probably one of the best cellies that I had outside of his snoring. I just could not deal with the snoring. The snoring was so bad and so loud, I remember one night in particular, and sometimes my goal was to try to beat him to sleep, hoping that I could get to sleep. We also had earplugs and stuff up in there, so I got me some earplugs. But sometimes, he'd be snoring so loud, he'd come right through them earplugs. So one night in particular, I ended up beating him to sleep. And now I'm in there. As I'm asleep, I'm having a dream about I'm outside free and I'm at a shopping market somewhere, a grocery store or whatever, and I'm buying some stuff. And every time I'm trying to ring up something, it keeps going across that, it won't, the scanner is not catching, whatever I'm trying to ring, the barcode. Every time, so I'm like wondering, damn, what's the hell in my dream, Then I finally wake up and I realize the that I'm hearing is my celly Rock snoring loud as hell. So eventually, I couldn't take it. I had to get up out of there, man. He actually ended up moving into the cell with my homie who you may have heard me mention a few times, Melly Mel from California Gardens. Melly Mel said the snoring didn't bother him at all, and he was cool with it. So they ended up switching. And matter of fact, I ended up going down there with my homie Biscuit. Remember I told you about Biscuit and the Weirdos. If you haven't saw that story, check that story out. It's not even safe in the chapel or something like that. But anyway, you already know what it is, man. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.